welcome back to another Outdoor Philosophy. Sorry for the weird angle today, and I should be okay with audio, not sure. I didn't bring the professional recording equipment with me because I wasn't completely sure that I needed to. But we're going to continue talking about working with emotional intelligence today. And we are on chapter 6, which is on motivations. And this is a part in the book where I'm starting to disagree with some of the things. And I have a friend right now reading Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People as part of that Dale Carnegie course. And we're looking at this book going, this is a field manual on how to be a sociopath. I mean, chapter 7 is how to get other people to think their ideas or your ideas are their ideas. That is a sociopathic view. And this chapter starts getting into some of those types of things. Not entirely, I'll highlight the key points. But this chapter is about motivation. And of course, motivation is an important thing. If you work at home like I do, for example, I've worked at home entirely on my own with no boss for almost a decade now. I'm coming up on 10 years. And the thing about being your own boss is it's this great thing that a lot of people who have the man that they go work for dream of it, but not everybody is suited to be your own boss. Not everybody can do what myself and other freelancers do because there is just a whole lot of motivation that is needed. And if you were to ask me what's the key thing I need to have in order to succeed as a freelancer or in my own business or as my own boss, number one thing, hands down, without a doubt, it is motivation. Because if you have to be motivated to get yourself out of bed, you have to be motivated to turn off the things that distract you. You got to be motivated to sit down and get the job done for as long as it takes. If it takes 6 hours, it takes 6 hours. If it takes 10 hours, it takes 10 hours. Whatever that happens to be. And motivation is key. Of course, this book being geared towards corporate executives trying to squeeze the most productivity out of their team, this is about this soft reality. How do we motivate other people to be good employees? And they hit on some of this. You know, employees who feel part of the company or who feel like they have a say generally are a lot more productive than people who don't. And I know that as I've done the various types of jobs that I've done over the years. You know, the jobs where I feel like they don't really care, I'm just a number, a unit, let's go make the sale. Those types of jobs you generally care a whole lot less about versus the types of jobs where somebody's actually really truly cares. And so the chapters kind of begins, of course, with some anecdotal stories. They talk about stress, different levels of stress. There's good stress, there's bad stress. For me, I don't work as well if there's nothing on the plate, and I don't work as well if there's too much on the plate. I got to find this perfect little balance. And this is one of the reasons I keep as busy as I keep, because it pushes me to say I have X amount of things to do, but I feel like if there's too many things on the plate, I will intentionally forego some things. So like I might intentionally forego the cooking videos because to me that's the lowest impact that I have. And it takes a fair amount of time. So I use things like that don't have solid deadlines, but I enforce myself solid deadlines so that I can kind of figure out back and forth what it is that, what makes the best level of work, stress, and motivation. And they talk about affiliation as the people motive, neurology of motivation, of course, where does this come from? Comes from the brain, go figure. They talk about people who have had brain damage in certain areas of the brain, and it's like they no longer have any real motivation. And so, of course, the chapters here are breaking down into various competencies of motivation. So the motivational competencies, he identifies 3 of them. Achievement drive, which is striving to improve or meet the standard of excellence. Commitment, which is embracing the organization's or group's vision and goals. And initiative and optimism, the twin competencies that mobilize people to seize opportunities to allow them to take setbacks and obstacles in stride. All right. So we're going to look at each of these 3, and I'll tell you which ones of these I disagree with. So first we start with the achievement drive. So striving to improve or meet a standard of excellence. So people with this competency, they are results orientated with a high drive to meet their objectives and standards. This is, like I said, if you work for yourself, if you're a freelancer, if you're doing your own projects, your own things, developing your own businesses, or maybe making your own job. The difference between building a business and building a job is you essentially do everything. You might sub something out every now and then. A business is where you're actually building something to have other employees and things like that. Okay? So being results orientated is very important, and this can take different forms. For example, in some instances, I might like to see have big solid checklists. And we change in our life. I used to thrive on big solid checklists. Now I thrive more on just rough things I need to get done. And I'm a whole lot less results driven than I am did something get accomplished driven. And that's just one of the ways I've changed over time. Setting challenging goals and taking calculated risks. So these are people who want to push themselves further. I'm not necessarily in competition with any other person, but I'm always in competition with myself. I want to get better than I have been the previous myself. And so I'm always competing with myself. What did I get done? What were marks of a good week? What were marks of a bad week? And that's important stuff to get done. And then pursue information to reduce uncertainty and find ways to do things. Translation, do more research to understand the directions you want to move into. And then, of course, learn how to improve. And that's what I already talked about, where I'm very driven to learn how to do that. Of course, we need to take calculated risks. We need to be desirable for some of that feedback and things like that. Now, commitment. Aligning with the goals of the group or organization. Or if you're a self-driven person like I am, aligning yourself with your own goals. Am I going to cheat on some hours? Am I going to, what am I going to do? And that really, it boils down to, do you have enough commitment to get stuff done while you maintain your integrity? So people with commitment readily make sacrifices to meet larger organization goals. This doesn't apply to me as much as I kind of do my own thing, mostly because I realized in all the different jobs that I've had, the companies no longer, the time this book was written, companies did seem to care more about their employees. This is a 20-year-old book. Nowadays, companies don't care for their employees very much. We are units of production, and so I don't really see a need to do a whole lot of that, and that's a reason why I've stayed freelancing. In fact, I've given up opportunities to remain being a freelancer. Number 2 is they find a sense of purpose in their larger mission. Again, applies more to how an employee relates to the organization. Do you find a sense of purpose? Now, for me, I find a sense of purpose in the larger mission of reaching the world for Christ on one hand, and helping people in this world, stuck in this world with privacy and technology on the other. So I feel a greater mission, although it's not directed by an external source, it is definitely directed by an internal source. And then use the group's core values in making decisions and clarifying choices. Again, this is where I deviate, because oftentimes the core decisions of some companies, not all, but some companies, the core values would have you sacrifice your morality and ethics for the sale. And I'm not into that in the slightest. And then actively seek out opportunities to fulfill the group's mission. Again, I'm not working for any group. Because oftentimes I find that the mission of the group is not necessarily in alignment with the mission of me. And then finally, we have the initiative and optimism, which is kind of broken into two sections, displaying proactivity and persistence. So people with this initiative, first we're looking at the competence of initiative. People with initiative, they are ready to seize opportunities. This is something I could definitely get better at. I mean, I could probably be doing a lot more sales if I, bowed to modern marketing trends. I just don't like modern marketing trends, so I'm not going to collect everybody's emails and spam people with opportunities and things. I'm just not into that. But for the most part, there are other opportunities where I do seize the opportunities, make calculated risks, sometimes very slowly, so I gather all the facts, and then you make your decision. Number 2, pursue goals beyond what's required and expected of them. This is critical. Again, since I set my own goals and things, sometimes I will go above and beyond my own sets. Oftentimes I just seek to reach them so that I can move on and accomplish a series of goals and a variety of things in my life. But when the times that I do work for other people, I do actually move above and beyond just the basics. For example, if I'm building you a WordPress theme, I'm not going to take shortcuts that I've seen in a lot of themes. I really do the job right, and that's kind of the difference. This is the one I kind of disagree with. Cut through red tape and bend the rules when necessary to get the job done. And this kind of boils into the various type of motivations that we have. There's like your type A personality. They just get the job done at all costs. I am of the type of personality where I will not bend rules. This is why I don't come close to the YouTube guidelines. I don't want to bend rules. I don't want to break laws. And I encourage people not to bend rules and break laws, except where our country, and if you live in a country that allows civil disobedience, to do that, and I will follow the prescribes of the law in that manner. Now, once you tell me that I have to do something that violates the commands of God, now I am still not bending the rules because God has given me other assets outside of that. And so that is an important thing to keep in mind. So I'm not going to bend the rules when necessary to get the job done. I find that to be unethical. And so I'm going to disagree and part ways with this approach. Of course, I'm not saying he's saying to do that. I'm saying this is his book of phenomenological research, essentially. And then for initiative, mobilize others through unusual and enterprising efforts. Okay, that can be taken either way. Whether if you're talking about the whole Dale Carnegie, manipulate people through being a sociopath, we're probably on a different level than using more ethical means. But in either way, motivating people in good directions is an important thing to do. And then, of course, for optimism, people with the competence of optimism. Persistent seeking goals despite obstacles and setbacks. This is important. There's times you're not going to meet all your goals, but you got to strive to meet beyond it. You can't have a rollover, play dead attitude. You can't have a victim complex. Oh, I'm just overweight. I can never learn to run. No, you got to start somewhere. Maybe set smaller baby steps, but regardless of the obstacles, get stuff done. Number 2, operate from hope of success rather than fear of failure. There's a fabulous book. If you have fear about doing things, there's a fabulous book. It's written, I think it's by Susan Jeffers, and it's called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. It is a fascinating book. And this is a true point. We need to approach things with the optimism of success rather than the fear of failure. And I remember when I applied this in my life, I think I'd start, did I? No, I don't think I did. Or did I? No. I had not yet been reading success and motivation books. I just had a positive outlook on things. We're in physical chemistry, P-Chem, and that is the hardest college course you will probably ever take. We jump into our first P-Chem exam, and I'm like, all right, guys, let's go get A's. We had 12 students in the class at most, I think, maybe 10 or something. And people stop behind me like, I wish I had your optimism. It's like, just have a good attitude going into it. Lo and behold, I'm not saying the attitude is what caused it, but I scored the highest on the exam. Because I had optimism going into it rather than pessimism going into it. And number 3 for optimism is to see setbacks as due to manageable circumstances rather than a personal flaw. So if you have a setback, if you have a failure, look at what caused the failure and readjust, reshift your priorities to cause that to be a success. So that's kind of what I want to talk about here on today's section. Hopefully you found it enlightening, and join us again next week for our next installment of Outdoor Philosophy.